the Life Diaries. Today I'm going to be talking about qualities that you should possess in order to have a happy relationship. So these skills are my top list for successful relationships. So, empathy. That's important because usually couples can get into arguments because usually both partners or neither of the partners are willing to listen to what the other person is saying, right? A lot of people are not getting to the point to actually empathize with people in order to try to understand how the other person is feeling, right? And it doesn't mean that you're going to change your ideas about that or perhaps thinking that you have to admit that you're wrong. It just means being able to show your partner that you care about them, and of course acknowledging how they're feeling, and that you are willing to make the effort to meet in the middle if required, right? So even if you've been with your partner for a long time, trying to step up into their shoes and to be able to recognize that they might see some things differently to you. So empathy is very, very important. Communication also, and it sounds like an obvious one, but communication is one of the most difficult skills in a relationship, believe it or not, right? So a lot of human beings struggle being able to communicate clearly and to show consistency, right? And to show in a great way the way that you're feeling, and try to make it in a way that the negativity doesn't come out from the communication. And that is very, very hard sometimes, as we can get angry and our communication gets foggy, right? So I would invest in tools in finding ways to build up communication skills, right? And communication, just so you know, it doesn't mean that you're just, you're trying to get your point across, but rather it can also mean that it's a new skill that you need to learn to be able to listen to what the other person has to say, right? So that's kind of like active listening. And it's being able to wait for your turn to speak up, listening to what the other person has to say, perhaps even repeating what they're saying back to them, that you're clarifying, asking questions. And usually most of the blocks of communication comes when people assume things and they think they know things. And that's one big block. Another quality is conflict. A lot of people think that arguing is a bad thing. But if there are no conflicts within a relationship, all right, there's a good chance that someone is holding something back from the relationship. And it's a bit abnormal, right? Because it's two different people, right? So it's like you guys are going to have differences between you, within you two. And conflicts are normal daily life from all people, But what makes a difference? It's how you can actually deal with those differences. That's what's going to count, right? Sometimes it might be the case of trying to argue better, right? In conflicts, the advice would be to try to use a softer type of way, okay, that focuses on your I feelings instead of attacking your person. So the you, avoiding the you, and just keeping in the I am feeling, right? Or I am so upset. Things like that, right? Because it's not good to be insensitive to the other person across you. And it's important to try to avoid, to not let things get out of line, right? Because you can regret later and things can just start building up, right? And another thing that's important is that during the conflict, you should be prepared to also be forgiving towards your partner, Because it's only when both of you guys are willing to let go of the desire to win when it comes to the argument that it can actually end. Another quality that's required is commitment, right? Because in a long-term relationship, what does commitment mean? It means that, you know, you guys are both willing to work on the difficulties together and that you plan for the future together, and clarification is required. And in addition, being able to protect the boundaries you both put on one another. Right? So this takes a lot of hard work and a lot of persistence, but actually the rewards are more than worth it, you know? Sorry about that. In the short term, right, it can also mean committing from moment to moment. So even say you're on a first date with someone, it's very, very important that you're able to give things your full attention and show interest in that person instead of wondering what else you could be doing or letting your mind get clouded over with doubts. And another obvious quality is love, right? But there's different types of love, right? We know we're Cypriots, right? And as Greek people, the ancient Greeks, they had different types of words when it comes to love, right? And one of it was eros. It's actually one of my favorite words. And it's the eros is erotic type of love, okay? And what it means, this type of love is with your partner, it means being attracted to one another, okay? It's that spark that makes the relationship kind of feel exciting and special, right? But then there's the other type of love also that one relationship should embody, and that means the friendship, right? So that's when you have the feeling of understanding one another and where you actually get to enjoy each other's companies and you actually might have shared interest together, right? And then there's another type of love. And that type of love is when you're being prepared to get out of your way for your person, right? Or you might even be required to put them first, right? So it might be something small like helping them with a task, even though you're really tired. Or maybe something, it might be even big, like taking care of them after a surgery or stuff like that. But usually these type of love needs to be instilled in a relationship in order for it to be able to thrive. But if you see that, there's lack in this, right? You might find relationships more challenging. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get there, but it might be worth thinking about the ways you could focus more on what's missing. So, in addition, what I want to say about this, right? Because there might be people out there that say, hey, Marina, stop that. I already have the empathy. I already have communication. I already have the conflict. I already, I'm committed and I already give the love. And I'm going to call you out on that. Okay? And it might come to a shock to a lot of people. It has all of these qualities, right? You've got all the empathy, the communication, blah, blah, blah. You've got the love. You're committed to that person, but all you seem to get is a dead end. So what does that mean for you? What is your lesson for that? When it comes to empathy, I want to call you out. What it's trying to tell you here, if you're a type of person that is quite empathetic, right? When you're meeting relationships that the other person is not empathetic, you need to call yourself out because you're overgiving empathy, right? And in which ways have you stopped giving empathy to yourself? Because that's what it's trying to teach you. That's what that partner that you're struggling with. That's why you have empathy, you're overgiving, but you're not giving yourself the empathy, right? You're understanding others, you're listening to what the other has to say, but how about yourself? Are you listening to what it is that you want? Is the other person listening to what you're saying? right? Is the other person admitting when they're wrong? Do you understand what I mean? Are they being able to step into your shoes? And what about in communication? What about communication? You're an excellent communicator. What about if you're missing the way you're communicating to your partner? You're failing to communicate to yourself. You're failing to communicate what your needs are. You're failing to communicate how you're feeling. You're failing to communicate that you might not be as happy as you might think. You're failing to communicate what's bothering you, right? So you keep on attracting that type of partner, a partner that might be lacking the communication. So it's a mirror, right? So when they're not good communicators, you're also not a good communicator in other ways within yourself. The limited communication that you have within yourself when it's trying to speak out to you. So what about if it's a conflicted person? There's conflicts going on, right? We're saying arguments are good, it's good for a relationship, but on the contrary to this, in which ways are you conflicted about yourself? What limited beliefs do you have about yourself, right? That person is fighting with you. You are also fighting with yourself, right? You're fighting with yourself. In which ways are you finding solutions to manage with your own conflicts, right? Are you perhaps not expressing the way you want to express because you don't like things to get out of control? Do you perhaps want to say something but then don't say it so you can just keep the peace? Isn't that conflicted within you? What are you conflicting within yourself? So if you're getting a partner that's always conflict against you, what are you conflicting within yourself? So this is what these type of people are trying to show you, what it is that you are conflicted about. So for sure, the way they're treating you might not be correct, but it's happening there for a reason. So you can bring it to the surface so it can be confronted. So, and then the other thing I talked about, commitment, right? In which ways are you committed to yourself? Are you committed to yourself, right? You're trying, for example, to work on difficulties together, but have you ever thought about that perhaps the other person is not committed on working on difficulties, right? Maybe you've been the only one that's been planning for the future, and perhaps the other person does not have any plans for the future. And where are you? Where is your loyalty of commitment to yourself? What are your values? What do you want out of a relationship? How committed are you? How much do you want that thing? Right? Give attention to what your commitments, what type of commitments that you have. So when a person across you can do something that shows that there's been no commitment, right? And I don't mean commitment marriage, being a committed partner, right? So that is being able to work out the difficulties you have together, protecting the boundaries that you may have, right? So which ways are you uncommitting to yourself, right? And then the last point, when I spoke about love, so maybe you're over giving love, right? Maybe you're over attractive to that person, right? Maybe you are the one that's making the relationship exciting and special. How is that other person responding towards you? Is it an equal give and take? Do you see him as a friend? Do you talk friendly? Is there a reciprocity? Is the love a reciprocity? Or do you over let's say, do you overgive yourself when it comes to love? Right? Are you the only one that's going out of your way or putting them first? Have they been putting you first? Where are your boundaries there? Right? Or in cases of the relationship not heading anywhere, why are you still there? Where is your love within yourself? Where is your self-love? Where is your self-love? Where is your self-respect? So that a partner that might not be treating you well is teaching you to find the self-love within you. So I always want to say that in relationships, it's always mirroring happening, right? And it's all about managing the feminine and masculine energy that we all have. And both people have both of this energy, feminine and masculine. And it's about bringing it into balance. If you're truly giving it your best, but you need to be able to see what traits you have that are limiting you, right, before walking away in anything, okay? Because relationships needs a lot of hard work, but you have to be able to give it your best. If you are giving it your best and you're trying to also understand yourself in which ways you are sabotaging the relationship, because a lot of people out there say, oh, you know, I'm the best, I'm such a good partner, but in which ways are you also sabotaging yourself? Because I'm sure there's many things that you're doing that you might not be aware of that you're doing. And you might think that you're doing everything right. Right? Because partners come to teach us a lot of things. They come to teach us a lot of things. And it always has to do with us. It's always about us. Right? And the more you're able to discover that, the more you're able to embrace that and to work on yourself, right? It's either the other party's gonna raise up their game, right? Or if they're not gonna be on the same page with you, because this is a matter of polarity, right? Like I spoke in my other video, negative and positive, angry, happy. It's a matter of polarity, right? So if things are not being attracted to one another anymore, it just simply is going to cease being there. That's why we have a lot of divorces and breakups in the world. It's a matter of the polarity, right? So when a person starts shifting their perception and their frequency and the way they think and the way they behave, right? That's why a lot of relationships go down the drain and people don't stay together, because it's all about evolution, right? Sometimes you grow out of relationships at a certain point that might have worked for you, but at the current state that you are, that might not be working for you. And you need to be open to recognize these things, because there's many people out there that are forcefully trying to hold on to relationships that are not good for them, right? Because they become attached to that, because that's all they've known in their life, right? They don't really know what healthy is, right? So the emotion of unhealthy is something familiar that they've experienced in their lives, and they think that it is what it is. And it's not like that, right? The people out there that we date, that we interact with, they have something to teach us, and we have something to teach them too. So we're always teaching and learning when it comes to relationship. Believe it or not, that's how it works. You can be blind to it, and you can be, you can always be going in a cycle. So I'm a believer in relationships can change, like even if somebody's married like for a lot of years, but it always takes two to tango. But most importantly, right, the one that has more of the feminine qualities is one that is able to make the shift happen, because the masculine is a bit more rigid, whereas the feminine energy is much more soft, and she can be the one to initiate things to get better, right? Because it's due to this that if it wasn't for the feminine energies of the world, all we would have in this world is destruction. And it goes like that. Both are needed, right? That's why there's always an attraction, male versus female, right? This is life. It's polarity. So work at it. You need to work at it very hard. But at the same time, look at your true needs, what it is that you really want. And if there's something that you want from the relationship, you need to be open enough to express your needs and because your feelings are very, very valid. You know, you've got to give yourself the empathy. You need to talk to yourself and be real with yourself. You need to remove the masks that you've been putting. You need to understand if you've been an angry person all this time, where does that anger come from? Because anger, right, I would say is sadness that has been sitting there for too long, right? If you've been conflicted with yourself, if you're always, your energy is down, you need to talk to yourself. Why are you feeling the way you're feeling, right? Because sometimes we think it's the other person that pisses us off, where deep down it has nothing to do with the other person. We might be disappointed with ourselves and maybe perhaps some decisions we have made, or if maybe we could have done things differently. But it's never too late, right? If you are committed to yourself and what it is that you want, right, you could be changing things around and making them how you want to live your life, right? And there's plenty of room for all of us to learn. I hope this helps, guys.